When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. Dads want steak. In fact, 75% of Americans say there's no better way to celebrate than grilling with the family. That's why I'm giving my dad Omaha Steaks, the original butcher, trusted since 1917. Their steaks are aged for tenderness, hand-cut by master butchers, and full of rich, beefy flavor. I recently tried their filet mignon and all-new smash burgers. Incredible quality and so easy to prepare. Whether it's beef, burgers, chicken, or seafood, every bite is backed by their 100% money-back guarantee. This Father's Day, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code FLAVOR at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR at checkout. See site for details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The Agile brand. Hey there, it's your pal, Bonnie Habian, and welcome to the Worth Knowing podcast. If you like a real-life story that features grit, grace, and a whole lot of gumption, then you're in the right place. Get ready to hear from some courageous women who talk about how pivotal, teachable, aha moments have reshaped their confidence and delivered opportunities they never imagined. It didn't happen by chance, of course. They figured out new, sometimes uncomfortable ways to put themselves out there in a way that shouts, they get it. You'll hear intimate stories with actionable takeaways and some very secret sauce. Because everyone has an important story worth knowing. And you know what? The world needs it, and you deserve it. Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with convicted felon and now keynote speaker and transformation expert Rashmi Airan. So if you missed part 1, you need to give that a listen first. Rashmi, I have to ask you this question as I have not been able to find this information anywhere. And so if I'm not allowed to ask it, let me know. But can you please tell me what happened to that developer and the other people involved in your case?
Yeah, because I don't talk about it. So the developer was never indicted. One of his operations guys got indicted with me. He then tried to blame and say that it was all my idea and my fault. And so he refused to plea. He went to trial. I was the government's main witness at trial against, basically against the operations guy. And I got grilled on cross-examination by his attorney for 18 hours or something crazy, 16 hours. And they were like, Rashmi, you're the smart one. You're the one that went to Columbia Law School. You're the one that came up with this. You're the one, and it was really a grueling 2 days.
You end up, one of the things I do know as women, we are just, unless you've read the book, which I just love, called Let Them by Mel Robbins. It's a really good book, by the way. We're very concerned about what other people think. So, you've got this whole scenario going, and as a woman, or just as a human being in general, it's hard, right? So you wanted to control that narrative. And again, I think that was probably in all the things that you go through, that was a smart decision, right? And just at least saying, listen, if anyone's going to tell this story, it's going to be me. So that's been a good thing. And I think during that time as well, you did that within your community.
I did. So my journey to taking accountability after I pled guilty, and that's why I was saying that taking accountability is a journey. Because for me, the first step for any of us that are dealing with anything, right? We are all going to we're humans. We're all fallible. We're all going to make bad choices at some point. And I think this first step in taking accountability is we have to forgive ourselves.
Right.
Because we all, that shame that grips us. And as women, we feel shame differently and more profoundly. Men feel regret. I don't think many men feel shame in the same way that women do. And that's a probably a topic for a different conversation. Like, why is that? Why do we as women feel more shame? But the fact is that we do. So I had to first forgive myself, like to the point where I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, I forgive you before I could do anything else.
Yeah.
So I first forgave myself. Then I forgave my client because I was so angry that he wasn't indicted. I was so full of like, I can't even describe it. I was so angry about it to the point where I was getting an ulcer. And ultimately, my mom and dad really helped me with this. I mean, thankfully, they have such faith in God, and they have such faith in like whatever happens is happening for my good. And so I remember my mom helping me understand that, honey, this is what you're supposed to learn something from this. Spiritually, your soul's supposed to learn something from this. And the developer, his journey in life is obviously different. And he's not meant to go through this experience like you are. And so you just have to forgive him and let it go because it is killing you from the inside. So I finally just got to the point where I forgave him and I let it go. And honestly, since that day, I mean, people ask me about it. So I obviously answered this question, but I do believe like we all are on our journey. And there was even if he had been indicted, it was not going to change the fact that I had already been indicted. Right. So, I had to go through my thing. The guy that I testified against, his operations guy, got convicted and he had to serve 3 years. My sentence was 1 year. So anyway, so back to the accountability. So what I did was after I forgave myself and forgave him, I then made a list of like 200 people in my life that I had known, like people that I've known since like childhood, like elementary school through high school, college, my investment banking days at Morgan Stanley, my law school days, my kids' friends' parents, my kids' teachers, my current friends, like new friends that I've met, just my running friends. And I didn't want anybody to read about it. I didn't know if there'd be a press release. I just knew that I was going to call everybody and tell them myself.
That had to be exhausting, and that had to take days, and that had to be,
Well, aside from exhausting, I actually 100% thought that as I called these people, that every single person would hang up on me and shun me.
Yeah.
And that, remember, my entire belief system is rooted in the fact that people love me and believe in me because of my achievements.
Right.
So now I'm choosing to voluntarily call people and tell them, assuming that they're going to hang up on me.
Right.
But it was important for me to go through this process. So I start calling people. I could only do like 4 calls a day because not only was it exhausting, it was draining. I was emotional. I was crying. I hadn't even been sentenced yet, so I didn't know. They would cry. They were shocked because I'm literally the last person anybody would ever expect to go to prison or to go, to have to go through this experience. And on every call, I was 100% honest. And then I owned it, took accountability, and then I asked for help. And I will tell you that one of the biggest gifts I've gotten through this life journey is that understanding that people are very forgiving of our humanity if we give them the chance to see our fallibility. Because we all live with this armor and we live with this like idea that we have to be perfect. I totally was that good girl all the time. And that, oh my gosh, if we show our errors, that people will not love us. And in fact, one of my friends said, you stood naked and exposed for the entire world to judge you. And we did. And you allowed us to look inwards because you were so honest about yourself. And we love you more. So like, it was such a journey for me to understand that people actually love me for me.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing in that realization because, talk about feeling vulnerable and scared. And I mean, I'm just trying to I'm very empathetic. So I'm getting probably too involved in thinking exactly what that moment must feel like. But I think that's a good thing in some respects, understanding a little bit of what you went through because of it's all part of that journey. And it probably started somewhere around there. I mean, I imagine that's kind of when you're talking about this journey that you're being pulled through, you've started by sharing and exposing. I mean, that's really at the bottom.
Yeah. And it built this community that I already had around me into an even tighter community that I didn't know I could have, it was almost like my constellation of stars. So out of when I made those 200 calls, I would end every call and say, will you please write a letter to the judge to support me and tell the judge a story that you know about me, like that shows my character
Right.
and who I am as a human. So the judge got this binder
Oh my gosh. Of
full
letters.
of letters. And it's like I got eulogized before I died.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's one of those incredible gifts that I got from this experience, is understanding that people are really incredible if you allow them to, like, stand up for you.
And we're all human. We're all human, right? So, I mean, these things happen and you say, okay, you make a human error. And to me, it's really that journey back, how you were able to kind of take that and really, again, it's a very remarkable story. So I want to go now. When you go into the judge, do you have any idea from your attorney what they're going to sentence you to?
So I knew that I had pled to a 5-year maximum. So that would be the maximum. We went in asking for house arrest so I wouldn't have to leave my kids. And I really had no idea. I think that afterwards, my attorney told me what he was expecting. And so, but he didn't want to tell me that because he, of course, didn't want to, squash my hopes of hoping for house arrest. So when I went in to this sentencing hearing, I mean, first of all of those 100 and however, almost 200 people that wrote these letters, all were there supporting me, which was like, it's a hot Tuesday summer morning and people flew in from New York and drove in from Charlotte and flew in from Houston. I mean, Philadelphia, like people just flew in just to be there for me. And it was like, God, I used to define myself by all these accolades and success was like, how much money am I going to make? And yet all these people are here to support me, knowing that I'm about to get sentenced. This is what success looks like. Like I have touched people's lives in a way that they are here for me no matter what.
That's beautiful. I mean, that really is, that's the silver lining of things that you say, oh, maybe I can get through this, right? I mean, it's having the important people around you, your family, people that love you, your children, your friends. Maybe some people rise to a level you didn't expect and others don't. I mean, there's just so much to unpack there.
Yeah. And so the judge read the letters, he saw the people, and then there was a sentencing video that we also did of 14 leaders in our community that and my mom and my dad and my husband at the time, and saying, including that first attorney who wanted to be a character witness. So there were certain people that we knew would be instrumental in hopefully swaying the judge. So anyway, I ended up getting a sentence to a year and a day in prison. And I remember right when he
In a
sentenced
day.
me.
What's that about? Who knows? But whatever.
No, there's a reason. There's a reason. 365 days or less, you are not eligible for good time credit, meaning probation. Like you don't get good time credit, which is 15%. Like if you act, basically you're eligible to get out 15% earlier.
Okay.
You get 50% less of your time. Good time credit, but 365 days or less, you're not eligible.
Gotcha.
366
So
days.
he was doing
or
a
more.
little bit of a favor to you in some respects.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, he was. So when it happened, when he sentenced me, I collapsed on the ground in the middle of the courtroom and I was hysterical, like
Yeah.
uncontrollable hysterical.
Yeah.
And, and I remember the prosecutor who by this point, the prosecutor and I had become good friends. Side note, he and I now do speeches together.
Wait, you and the prosecutor.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
It is. Yeah. We've become very good friends and I respect him so much.
But you weren't during that time, obviously.
We grew to be friends towards the end. Like in the process of preparing for that trial where I was the government's main witness, I spent hours and hours and hours with him and like got to see who he is as a human, as a person, and what he believed in and his ethics and his morals. And he's a really good guy. And so by this point I had already owned what I had done wrong. So he was just doing his job. And so, anyway, right after I got sentenced, his name's Joe. Joe came up to me and hugged me, like literally hugged me in the courtroom and said, "You got this. You're going to be okay." Like it was, my attorney was like, never in the history of me doing this, that any prosecutor hugged my client. And so I think I think because I'm so open and vulnerable, it's like I break down these walls that people have, which is, I never really understood this about myself, but this last 10 years, I've learned this about myself. So I had 60 days to surrender. The judge let me, we didn't let the kids come to the sentencing hearing. They didn't even know anything about it.
No.
And so that we told the kids, I want to say a week later, I told my kids, and it was really important for me to be honest with them. I wanted to honor them with that, just like my parents had honored me with the truth decades earlier. What's so interesting is like I had spent my whole life trying to avoid the struggle. And isn't it the universal truth that we can't avoid it?
We can't. I think you're right. We can't. There's certain things that are going to happen, and they happen. All right, so you eventually tell your children, and I remember, reading one or two things that made me like almost tear up, to be quite honest, when
Yeah.
your one child was asking about one or two things of how you were going to be when you went to prison.
Mm.
Would you share that with us a little bit about that conversation? Because to me, as
Yeah.
anyone, to me, that's probably, of all the things we've talked about, the hardest.
It is because look, every mom and dad, we're like the hero in our kids' eyes. And now I'm telling my children that I have messed up so badly that I'm now having to go to prison. And to a 9 and 10-year-old, that is scary. And they see prison as like what they see on TV and what they read about, and they just think it's for bad, really, really, really bad people that are murdered and raped. And so the way I told the kids was I related it to sports. They're both athletes, and they were both playing Kyler was playing football, Maya was playing soccer. And so I just gave them a metaphor. I said, Kyler, or metaphor's not the right word. An example. Like I said, Kyler, if you're on the football field or and you're in the huddle and the coach says, run, go run, I want you to run. Okay, Kyler, you're gonna go run a 5 and out. And the quarterback's gonna, pass the ball to you. And in the huddle, you somehow forget and your mind's wandering and you go out, and instead of running a 5 and out, you run a 7 and out, right? The coach is going to get really mad at you, and he might penalize you for that. Because you made a bad decision. You just did something that you weren't supposed to do. So you might get pulled out for a set of downs. Like that'll be your penalty. And Maya, when you're on the soccer field and you might, kick a girl, you might shove a girl by accident or do something, you might get a yellow card, right? And
Right.
you'll be out of a soccer game for a few minutes. So that's your consequence. In real life, there are real life consequences. And mommy made some bad decisions, and she's going to have to go away for a year. Maya, like, I remember she was 9, but like she jumped and like got into my lap. She didn't understand. The beauty of the fact that I had 60 days was that the kids had a lot of time to process
Right.
and think about the questions that they had. So over the next, it was like 50 days, they would ask questions like, Mommy, what will you eat?
Yeah.
Mommy, what will you wear? Mommy, will you be safe? Mommy, can we come visit you? Like all the things
Yeah.
that, a child would want to know.
From the most, pure of hearts, that's the sorts of things they're worried about, right? And I think, you know, um, that just speaks volumes as to where they were thinking at the time. And children, thank goodness, are very resilient. So tell me a little bit about what life was like in prison.
Yeah.
I know, and I've heard you refer to 0512110, and I imagine that's a number you'd like to forget, but
You missed that. You missed a number.
did I?
It's Yeah, it's 0512110. You missed the four.
Sorry about that. All right. Well, see
Okay.
that, but I'm just
I'll
saying,
never
I think
forget
you're
it.
able to tell this story, and it's just, people probably, and I'm sure you probably get tired of telling it, but in
I
some
don't.
respects,
I don't
you
because
don't.
people are so curious.
They are. We're very curious. We're very curious, and
Yeah.
I think your story in being this every person's kind of, like you say, oh my goodness gracious, this life that she has led has been just magical. But the real beauty is that you went through something bad and you've kind of are like reinventing, and to have that strength and courage only comes from, I would think, a family and a love and a support that you have that has given you some strength there, and you've had a good foundation, because I don't know if everybody would be able to rebound the way you have. And I'm saying that lightly because I'm sure every day is a challenge. So I'm looking at it very far away, but from the far away stance, it's a very interesting story. So what is prison like? Do you make friends? What do you eat? I mean, what was that life like? And are we way off in our perception? Which we probably are.
Well, I think there's some validity to it. So I would say the first thing I made sure to do, and I'll talk about where I was most of the time, which was at a minimum security camp called Coleman near Orlando. And that my days comprised of I would get up and I'll just walk you through my day.
Yep.
I would get up in the morning and I would the first thing I would do is I would write in my gratitude journal. And it was sitting on my ledge, like I was on the top bunk. And one of my friends had sent me a gratitude journal. So like the first thing I would do was I would turn my night light on because it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I would open the gratitude journal, and I'd write three things I'm grateful for today, three positive affirmations, and three things I'm hoping to do today. And then I'd make my bed and I'd get ready, brush my teeth, and then and put on, my exercise clothes, which were basically clothes I had bought from commissary, which were the only thing available in a women's prison, at least at the time, were men's Russell athletic basketball shorts, t-shirts, sweatpants, sweatshirts.
They didn't have any women's stuff. It was just men's.
No, no, yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense either, but whatever.
No sense. So then I would always go to the computer. There were like these computer terminals where there was like a certain program that it's like a federal program that we were able to email out. So I would always email my children first thing in the morning. There was an hour time delay from when I emailed to when my kids would get it, because everything goes through a system where they have to check it for security and everyone reads everything. So anyway, I would always send my kids an email, and then I would go out. As soon as I was allowed to go out of the housing unit, I would go. And at this facility, there was kind of like a makeshift track that was comprised. The surface was like broken shells and rocks that had just been pounded down over the years. I had at some point bought shoes from commissary. Do you remember like the original white Reebok shoes? Like the original white Reeboks?
Yeah. Did they have
Okay.
like rounded, or were they pointy at the
Yeah.
front, or kind of rounded?
They were like a little rounded at the front. Yeah. So that's what was available in commissary. So I bought those, and every day I would like lace those up in my men's basketball. It was very sexy, let me tell you. Men's basketball shorts and t-shirt. And I'd go out and I'd just start running, and I'd run and I'd work out. And
I didn't realize that you couldn't even have your own items. Like you had to buy from there. You couldn't have your own running sneakers, right?
wait, no. You walk in and they take everything from you and you pack it up in a box and they mail it to your house. And then they give you, like, what they give you that's federally issued is they give you underwear, like imagine Hanes granny underwear, Hanes like cheap cotton bras,
Oh gosh.
Hanes white socks, black steel toe boots for work, and my prison uniform color was safari green. So there was like safari green pants, safari green like button down shirts, puke brown like t-shirts. That's what that's what gets issued to you. By the way, I'll never wear safari green again in my life.
I don't blame you. It was-
Everything that was in my closet that was safari green has been thrown out. Like
yeah,
it will not
I
be
don't
used.
blame you. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Right. So that's all that they give you. Oh, and they also give a pair of like almost like, think about Vans, like those like slide Vans, but they're blue and they're just like really cheapy, dollar store type shoes. So that's all they give you. And then everything else you have to buy. So even like what you're going to sleep in. So I would sleep in, sweatpants. And so everything else you have to buy from commissary.
And you only have to buy their items. Whatever's in that, that's all that you're able to have access to, and you have to have money to buy it.
Correct.
Okay,
You
got it.
only can buy what's in commissary. And from a clothing standpoint, there wasn't a lot of options, right? So I would go out and run, and there was like one quote wellness room where they had those round like squishy weights, and they had some steps and they had some mats, and I would like run myself through a workout. I'd plank and
Yeah.
do squats and whatever. So then I had a job. My job, I had two jobs. At the beginning, my job was I was the trash girl. So like every night, my job was to take the trash from all the housing units that were on these big, rollable big bins, and roll them to the back of the complex. And then one by one, thank God I had gloves, one by one, take the bags, put them into the trash compactor. Many times the bags would bust open, so that I'd be like shuffling and getting
Oh my
the garbage
gosh. That
with my hands and putting it into the trash compactor and then pushing the button. And that was my job for about a month, every night right before we had to be in our housing unit, which was a very humbling experience, as you can imagine. My second job that I had until I left was I was a teacher. So I applied, I did like a handwritten resume, submitted it to education. And then when that existing teacher was sent home, I got the job. So I taught math and English in the morning and math and Spanish in the afternoon.
awesome. That, I would imagine that was probably a great, like,
It was so
diversion.
fulfilling. It was so fulfilling.
That's awesome. Did you slept in your own room with another, or was it like a mass room with a lot of people?
Yeah. So it was one big room with about 180 women. Imagine two hallways, right? So there's two hallways, and on either side of the hallway are little cubes. So, but they're all open. The walls
All open. Okay.
came up to our shoulders. So there were two hallways with rooms on either side. So four rows of cubes, and each cube had two people, and each cube had one bunk bed. Each person had their own locker, which was about waist high, a locker with like six compartments or eight compartments. We each had a plastic chair that we had that we could sit on, and that's it.
So first night, I can't even, like, anxiety.
The first night was as scary as you can imagine because it was like really disorienting. So my first night actually was not at Coleman. My first night was here in Miami in the Federal Holding Center because they had to transport me, which is another whole long story. But I remember feeling like all the women were looking at me
Yeah.
because by the time I got into the housing unit, it was like past dinner. And so they were all kind of like hanging out. Or, people I guess kind of knew each other. And I walk in, I feel like they're all staring at me. And, the guard takes me to a room. And this place at the holding center, they were actually rooms that they would lock you in. So I remember like going into this room, and the mattresses were not even mattresses. They were like little vinyl mats like this thick. And there wasn't even one there for me. So I had to go scrounging looking for one, and nobody's talking to me. And I only have what they give you when you basically go through receiving. It's called receiving and discharge. So when they log you in, they give you like a bag, and the bag had a small little toothpaste, a small little toothbrush. There was a bar of soap and a little bottle of shampoo, and a paper thin towel, and there was a blanket, but not a blanket. It was like, super thin blanket, and a sheet.
So what if you get cold? You're nothing. No. Okay. Well, I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, listen, asking these questions, I'm like worried that you were cold, but,
They don't care. Let's
they
just
don't
say.
care. Did you make any friends? Were there some folks in there that you at least felt that you had some sort of connection with, or was it very just
No, I actually did. I
good?
mean, I had at the camp where I spent most of my time, I had lots of friends. I actually tell people I made the most unexpected connections in prison that I could never have imagined. And I think like, if we kind of extrapolate to what's happening in the world right now globally, right? Connection and belonging is such a hard thing in corporations right now, and companies, and in our communities. Like finding connection and belonging seems almost insurmountable in some ways. And then that's affecting team engagement, which is affecting corporate culture, all of that. And it's so interesting because I could have never imagined that I would have found the connections or made the connections that I made with people that I never, ever otherwise would have met, but for the fact that I was sitting in prison. And so I do think that when we open our minds to who we can connect with, it changes our perspective of finding belonging. And
Well,
so yeah,
yeah.
I made friends. I had a woman who was I call her my mom. She was my prison mom. And then I had also a prison sister, so we had our own little family. It was like the three of us, and we would like sit together at a table when we weren't working, and we would like look at magazines together and play board games together and talk and share stories, and then we would go and eat together, and we would watch TV together in the TV rooms. And so like we had our own little thing. And yeah, I did. My bunkie, her name is Michelle. She and I still keep in touch. She's out now, and she lives a couple hours away, so I've seen her a few times. Yeah, I've kept up, I mean, with a few people. There's a few people who it's almost like I'm like, "Oh my god, what was that person's name?"
Well, it's been a while now. I mean, you've been out for what?
9 years, 9
9
years now.
years. So, and you got out early. I seem to
I did
recall.
get out early, and that story was that I was asked to testify in another case, and for that I was sent to Tampa, and I had to stay in the county jail, which is a whole other story, which was really hard. But because I testified in that other case, the judge granted me an early release, which is a Rule 35.
Okay.
And so I came home, and I didn't have to go to halfway house. I didn't have to go to house arrest, which was really nice. And I surprised my kids and came home and built my new life. And I tell people, like, I came home and it was like, okay, this is my new chapter. I'm gonna, I'm gonna reassess my impact in the world, how I show up for people, how authentic and vulnerable I live. So one thing for me that's come out of this is that I feel I tell people I had to lose my freedom to gain complete freedom. Because now being in this space of like total transparency, not pretending to be something I'm not, I've literally taken off my armor, right? Like I credit Brene Brown for that.
Love Brene Brown. Yeah. So you feel free. You feel much more free. You feel much more authentic, much more connected.
I do.
Coming home after all of these things. I mean, again, right? You're disbarred. You can't practice. You have financial debts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is in your mind kind of saying, now I go forward? What does that look like? Now that you've had all of this, is it more like, I'm glad that's behind me. This is a new, I am just going at life differently. Or is it a part like, oh my gosh, I'm a little confused. What do I do?
No, it was definitely the former. I just saw this as my new chapter and I had such a positive mindset about it and growth mindset that I didn't know what I was going to do. I helped my uncle a little bit. He has a business in Texas. So I was helping him like with some side administrative things. And then I started like reaching out to my law school at Columbia, like a professor there. And I said, hey, can I just come share my story? I really don't want anything else. I just want to help law students. And if I can help one law student learn from my bad experience and my bad decisions, and they never go through what I went through, that's worth it to me. And so he invited me up for that. I used my miles to pay for it because I had no money. And from there, word began to spread. But ultimately what happened was I was still on probation. So it was brought in front of the judge. It's a long story, but the probation officer asked the judge, hey, can Rashmi, do these engagements? Are you okay with her traveling? And essentially he said, I'm okay with her traveling and her expenses can get covered, but I won't let her make money doing it, which meant I kept waiving my speaker fees. And so for 3 years, I did over 300 speeches. I waived every fee, but I made a huge impact. I feel like that was my positive pay it forward redemption right into the world. I got to work with incredible clients and met amazing people and touched thousands and thousands.
Yeah. Think of all the people you're touching and connecting and sharing a story with that will make them think. And I think it will. That's the power of the story. I got to tell you, it makes you think because there are gray areas in this world.
Right. And the gray is where the mess happens.
Absolutely. And it can be unintentional, completely unintentional.
Well, this is what I tell people. It's okay to play in the gray. You just have to know where in the gray are you playing. Are you playing on the right side of the line where there's like, that's strategic thinking and thinking outside the box and profitability and disruption? That's great, right? Or are you on the wrong side of the line? Because if you're on the wrong side of the line, playing in the gray, that's the slippery slope. And that's where you start cutting corners.
The slippery slope is what you refer to. We want to stay away from that slippery slope.
Yeah, because you want to stay away from cutting corners and sliding down the slope. Because once you start sliding down the slope, it's impossible to come back up. Yeah. It's impossible to find your way back.
Well, let's talk about you today, because the Rashmi I've come to know, and the few times I've spoken with you, is my next door neighbor, is my friend, is my college, whatever. We have a lot in common, and it's scary when I think, my goodness, that could be me, for sure. But you are an inspiration and a light for a lot of people who may be very afraid of going through something horrible in their lives. And people do every day. Some people are able to come back. Some people aren't. Could you share a little bit about what you're doing right now and what is Rashmi going to be doing in 5 years? I think people want to know, how are you? Are you in a relationship? How are your children? Is life better? Are things good? Are you happy?
Yeah. Okay.
I want to know that.
Thank you for asking. So I'll start with the kids. The kids are 19 and 20 now. Both are in college. My son is a sophomore at University of Florida in the honors program. He's president of his fraternity. He's living his best life.
Wonderful.
My daughter is a freshman at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. She's playing volleyball for Trinity. She's a collegiate athlete, and she is fabulous. She's got an incredible girlfriend. So yeah, she's awesome. I am single. I did get divorced in 2017. So after I got back, and a couple of I've had a couple of relationships, none of them panned out. So currently single, dating. Let's see, I work out every single day still. So when I came out, I did about 6 or 7 years speaking about ethics and compliance and integrity and accountability, which is a natural place for me to start in this journey as being a professional speaker. In the last 18 months, I have shifted. So I still do and have that talk that I can do if somebody says, hey, can you come and do an ethics talk? I do a lot like with law firms because I do have CLE credit in some states. But I'm more now working on this concept and this idea. My battle cry, as you say, is rise through it.
Right.
And so
Right.
it kind of harbors back to my whole journey in my life, right? Which is, as I mentioned earlier, I had spent my whole life trying to avoid the struggle, only to realize that I also have to go through the struggle. Mine just looked differently than what my parents and my grandparents look like. And so the truth is that we are all going to struggle. And so when we fall down to our knees, or when we're scared of change, or the fear of uncertainty and anxiety comes over us, or we're scared that AI is going to take our job, or like, there's so many things that are affecting all of us today, or, my husband has cancer, I'm going through a divorce. Like, there's always something that's affecting us, right? When that happens in our lives, how do we rise through it? So here's the thing. I think many of us in society have learned or have been taught that just move on, rise above, keep going. And to me, that's not the answer, because that's just escaping the lessons you're supposed to learn by that struggle. And so I believe you actually have to rise by going through whatever it is. So that means you have to, I have a 3-step process. You have to embrace whatever it is you're going through, like truly own it, right? Take accountability for it, acknowledge the truth, feel the pain, if it's pain, or feel the uncertainty and the discomfort, and like feel it in your bones. Then when you feel it, the second step is you let go. So you let go of whatever's holding you back. I think what holds us back is ego, fear, control, and judgment, right? Like, we judge ourselves, we judge others. Control takes us over. Like, ask anybody, I'm a control freak. Like, my ex-husband will tell you, I am a control freak. But I had to let go. I had no control in this life of what happened. And so, I had to let go. I had to let go of ego. I was so at the beginning worried, like, what are people going to say? What's going to happen?
I couldn't agree more. And it's so funny because I was going to ask you as we wind down here, give me sort of like 3 takeaways that, I thought about this a lot this week. I really did. Like, what is it I'm looking for, Rashmi? And I had to kind of step back and I'm like, you know what? I want her to give in 3 words what she did to get through what she did that all of us everywhere can possibly use. And you just gave it to it.
There you go. I'm giving it to you. So well, I haven't given you the 3rd step yet. So
Okay.
it's embrace, let go. And the 3rd step is dare.
Dare.
And when you dare, you're acting with courage. You're taking a small, bold step forward. It doesn't have to be a big step, but you're taking a step forward towards rising through, right? And when you do those 3 things, by the way, you don't just do it once. This is something, it's ingrained in your head and you start to recognize when the control starts to seep through, where ego starts to come back, because it's every day, it's iterative.
Right.
The cycle repeats itself constantly, because we're not just going to struggle once. I mean, in my life, I've gone to prison. My sister passed away 5 years ago from mental health issues. I'm divorced, right? My daughter also suffers, with some depression and anxiety issues. Somebody I love very dearly passed away from cancer 5 years ago. So like, I have gone through my own
Yeah,
journey
for
of
sure.
challenges, and it's still, I'm like, oh my God, my soul chose a lot of lessons to learn in this lifetime, because there have been a lot.
Yeah.
And I smile. People say, wow, how can you smile and be happy? And I think, I'm healthy, my kids are healthy, and all I can do is learn from these experiences. And when you didn't ask, but I feel like when you lose a loved one, the grief we feel is for the unexpressed love, right? Like, that's what's Andrew Garfield says, right? The
Yep.
grief is really unexpressed love that we weren't able to fully express to the person we loved. That's what he says about losing his mom. And I feel that way about my
That's a
sister.
good point. That's a really good point. And which brings you to kind of this full circle is don't leave anything on the table, and also understand that really life is all about connecting. It's all about making connections. And you've proven that in telling your story about how people came to support you and the connections you made because of this. So with that, in that note, I just want to say thank you. Really, you just were very, very open and honest. And I appreciate you being so candid with all of us. And if anyone wants to learn more about Rashmi, you will see everything in the show notes. She is a keynote speaker. I do need to ask you this. Are you going to write a book?
I'm writing it now. Actually,
All right.
I was working with my editor yesterday. We're still title TBD. We haven't quite landed on a title yet. But yeah, I have signed a contract with the publisher. It'll come out likely Q1 2026.
Well, we're having you back on then.
Yes.
And I wish you the best of luck, and I think you are going to be doing very well because your story does have so many relatable things to it that we can all relate to, but also learn from. So thank you. And if you, my friends out there, that's what I call them, my friends here, my listeners, if you like the show, please you make sure that you leave a comment on Spotify or Apple and share it with other friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wani. It's been fun.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worth Knowing. If you'd like to learn more about our guest story or connect with them, you'll find their details in the show notes. Remember, the path to Worth Knowing is paved with courage and insight. Stay inspired, keep striving, and continue to make a difference. Then, you must make sure to share it with others. Until next time, keep chasing those aha moments, my friends. You know, the ones that deliver results and motivate and teach the world. Worth Knowing is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. The Agile Brand.
Beautiful Anonymous changes each week. It defies genres and expectations. For example, our most recent episode, I talked to a woman who survived a murder attempt by her own son. But just the week before that, we just talked the whole time about Star Trek. We've had other recent episodes about sexting in languages that are not your first language, or what it's like to get weight loss surgery. It's unpredictable, it's real, it's honest, it's raw. Get Beautiful Anonymous wherever you listen to podcasts.